Now, ultimately, we have to get down to how does an optimized CPM platform work? Because remember, that's what Facebook is. It's an optimized CPM platform. And by the way, if your agency can't explain to you in 30 seconds or a minute what an optimized CPM environment is and how what they're doing is taking advantage of it, you should fire them. Here it is in a very short synopsis. What is an optimized CPM platform and how do you set yourself up to make best use of it? An optimized CPM platform basically is designed to allow a user journey within that platform to be optimized to their ultimate user experience across multiple platforms and multiple devices to retain their attention, to ultimately create the opportunity to monetize that attention for all advertisers. What we can do to align ourselves with that is create content that not only generates demand and creates intent, but ultimately curates customer journeys that are profitable for us. That's it. That's the secret. That was 30 seconds. Now, what that really means is, how does an optimized CPM environment work? I'll tell you how it works. Facebook is looking at what content you're engaging with, who you're engaging with, how you're engaging, when, and what on. And ultimately, their entire algorithm, their unfair advantage in the marketplace. And remember, if you're doing business with any vendor, your number one objective should be to very specifically take advantage of their unfair advantage in the marketplace, because that is what they are bringing to the table and they're better than you at. Facebook is better than you at delivering impressions of content to users who are leaned in or potentially even leaned back to create a customer journey and an impression share and ultimately an experience that gets that user to take a business action that you desire. You cannot compete with that. Bottom line, that's not up for debate. So ultimately we get down to this. The optimized CPM environment is Facebook's way of curating a news feed. Now, we've already talked about how ads do the targeting and about how every ad makes its own lookalike audience. And you can go back and watch other videos or check out the podcast on how Facebook ads work. And if anybody disagrees with that, fine, they're objectively wrong. And the engineers and product team for the last decade would 100% disagree with you. But that's okay. You can have that opinion. It's not for me to tell you that you should embrace the fact the sky is blue and fire is hot and water is wet. You don't believe it? Fine. But for those of us that wish to embrace reality and go with science, let's establish a few simple things. The optimized CPM environment basically functions like this. If I show you something and you respond in a way that is desirable for my business, in this case, Facebook's business model of retaining attention to sell eyeballs for profit, then my number one objective is to understand why you engage with that positively, and then ultimately to give you other things that trip that same cause. And if I can do that in many different ways at a volume, I'm going to keep you on the platform for a long time. Now, to be completely fair, TikTok has crushed in this with taking a feature and turning it into the entire product. Taking effectively a story, which was a knockoff of a Snapchat piece of content, and turning that into the entire product model. Now, if you've been stuck in a TikTok rabbit hole for hours or gone down the YouTube rabbit hole, which is the predecessor to all of this, for hours, which ultimately, again, is basically just a really smart version of television programming, which was a ripoff of radio programming, which took its cue from print and newspapers. So this logic isn't 2-3 years old. It's well over 100 years old and very well proven. So the point here is it's curating an experience to keep you coming back and to keep you on the platform. Now, a lot of people will say the optimized CPM environment isn't capable of targeting people. I need audiences. That's objectively wrong. There's no data to support that in any way. And people that still cling on to that are the same people that say Facebook's unstable, the same people that brag about ROAS, even though that's completely meaningless, the same people that are focusing on scaling to the moon as fast as possible instead of actually building a sustainable business. They're the people that are completely missing the forest for the trees. And that's okay. I used to be that person too. I had to learn. Several 8- and 9-figure business exits, hundreds of millions of dollars in ad spend, and many, many, many hours of talking to people a lot smarter than me where I was dead wrong and very, very enthusiastic about it. I brought me to this point 10 years later where I can very easily talk about this to anybody else. But what we're really getting down to is the optimized CPM environment works by giving users a curated experience to keep them on the platform. And what Facebook has above YouTube, above Pinterest, above Snapchat, above TikTok, that none of those platforms will truly ever be able to compete with as the landscape currently exists, is that Facebook is not only on your mobile device and your laptop or desktop, but it also has a messenger. It's got WhatsApp and Instagram, amongst many other things. So they're not just like TikTok is seeing what you're doing on TikTok. Pinterest is seeing what you're doing on Pinterest. YouTube is seeing what you're doing on YouTube. Facebook is basically all of those combined, all put together to curate an experience across the entire access to the internet that many people have. And you might say, well, I don't really use Facebook that much. Yeah, but do you shop? Do you have a credit card? Do you visit websites? Do you use apps on your phone? Do you have the Facebook app on your phone? Do you log out? Because if the answer to any of those things, barring the last one, is a yes, you're giving Facebook data constantly all day long. What about your location? Who are you close to? What are they doing? If you don't think that Facebook is using this information to curate an experience to keep you coming back on Facebook and Instagram, if you don't think that the reason that you get stuck down Reels forever, or why you're getting shown content from people you've never met and you like it, why when you search for one thing, now all of a sudden you're inundated with ads for a whole bunch of things that are exactly like it. If you don't think that if you think that that's not happening at scale, and that you need to ultimately control that, you're barking up the wrong tree. And where this comes back to iOS 14 is that Apple's operating system doesn't block any of that information. We're, again, talking about a bunch of things that iOS 14 touches 1 or 2% of. And we're talking about a journey and an experience where you might have had Facebook or an Instagram account for thousands of days and maybe have it seen you take hundreds of thousands or millions of actions. Yeah. Watching a video, hitting like, commenting, clicking on pages, sending messages, visiting websites, pinging location data on where you're going, having Bluetooth connect to multiple point of sale devices. Yeah, that all matters. I did a big case study with Starbucks where we were able to show that we were delivering you ads in the news feed with a reach campaign, and that your device saw that and then showed up in a Starbucks at a point of sale device, and we could make attribution happen that way. Facebook's really smart. And again, that journey also, in no way can iOS 14 block it. So this elaborate conversation of iOS 14 is really harming everybody really goes down to the simple fact that it only hurts those that refuse to use Facebook properly. And if you're using it as an excuse, you've already lost, because clearly you're a victim and nothing can ever change. You're not going to overcome that issue ever. But you can make sure that you understand that it has no impact on your ability to function. And ultimately, when people cite, well, Facebook's, their spend and they're citing issues, their spend is up. There are more advertising dollars in the platform than there used to be. And a lot of advertisers are leaving for TikTok CPMs that are now in the competitive or more expensive. It's a lie.